Hey, how are you today? It's great to have you here. It's a beautiful day where I am, sun is setting. I'm a happy guy. I want to talk to you today a little bit about why it is that you're either depressed, anxiety-ridden, or feeling you aren't accomplishing up to your abilities, that you haven't fully unlocked the beast inside of you that wants to accomplish so much. Why you're being held back, or why in life you're feeling like life is sitting its fat fucking ass right on your head, or why you're always so anxiety-ridden. I've been doing the work that I do, counseling other people, for over 25 years. And I've been on my own personal journey, deliberate spiritual journey, for almost 35 years. And so over years and years of counseling other people, you begin to see patterns. I was a mathematics major in college until I switched my junior year to become a world religions major. And one of the things that happens in mathematics is you study patterns. That's what science is. It's the study of patterns, of how things are happening in the past to begin to determine how they're going to happen in the future, right? Well, it's the same way with people. Over time, you begin to see patterns. And I believe very much that based on these patterns, based on decades of doing this work, that anxiety and depression and that lack of fulfillment, that feeling like you haven't made it there yet, where you really want to go, is rooted in three things. And I consider it a spiritual process. Now, I need to say in advance, before I explain what the hell I'm talking about, I need you to know that when I speak of spiritual, I'm not talking about God stuff. If you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, if you believe in many gods, if you're an atheist, I don't give a shit. Because it's applicable either way. You can fit it into your own sort of theological system however you want. These are just patterns. And at times you'll hear me use the word God, gods, universe, soul. They're all in, to make it applicable to as many people as possible, I sort of use them interchangeably, all right? I hope that's not offensive to you. All right, all of that being said, it's a spiritual process. And what I mean by that is ultimately your fulfillment in life. You're feeling like you've accomplished all you want to accomplish and become who you really want to become in your exterior life and in your interior life is rooted in your communion with your own spirit, your own soul deep inside. And the people who have the greatest happiness in life are those who are living an integrated life. That means who they really are in the depths of their soul is the same as who they are in the outside. That what they feel called to be, say, do, and become from their soul is existing on the outside. There's integration between external and internal. The people who have the most unrest are those who have a grating, if you will, a roughness where what they are on the outside rubs against who they really feel called to be in life. And that rubbing, right? That grating in your chest, in your gut, in your throat. That's two worlds colliding. Who the external world expects you to be, wants you to be, and who you really are, okay? So that being said, I believe, based on 25 years of doing this shit and 35 in my own life, I believe that the spiritual life of living in communion, in integration of your own spirit and your own soul, that spiritual life requires three fundamental things. And if you're depressed, if you're anxiety-ridden, or not accomplishing that which you feel called to accomplish, it's because of this spiritual process. And that there's some skew, there's some wrench that's been thrown into it for you. So it's very simply this. The path to becoming who you really are, the path to your greatest fulfillment in life, and the path to true peace inside your soul is first of all rooted in one big thing. Okay, there are three total, but the first one is the capacity to hear the calling of your own soul. I get so many people that I work with, from presidents of companies to mid-level managers to the poorest of the poor in the years that I worked with the homeless, to everyone in between. And one thing I repetitively see is there are so many people in life who come to me, Sven, and say, yes, I want to become my real self. Yes, I'm sick of this depression. Yes, I'm sick of this anxiety. Yes, I'm sick of not becoming my fullest self. But the truth is, Sven, I have no fucking clue who I really am. I don't know what would make me happy. Okay? That is the first thing, that they can't hear their own inner voice. And very often that is the result of the fact that they have been taught from a very young age to listen to some external power source. Usually it's mom or dad, mom and dad, but it's whomever very often raised you or whoever the most powerful people were in your lives. See, when we're growing up, it's very important when children are, let's say 0 to 10, that we're imparting our wisdom, that we are to some degree telling them how to live. But the real challenge in parenting is when that child turns 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, to begin to not further step into the child's life, but to begin bit by bit to step out of their life, to begin to remove my voice from their life so that they can begin to hear their own voice. And that requires, on the part of the parent, that requires the willingness to allow the child to fail. It requires the willingness to allow the child to fall down, have their own fuck-ups. But it also requires the willingness to let the child succeed on their own and feel the glory, the confidence that comes from, holy shit, I trusted my gut and I made a great decision. But also to be able to, as I said, stand up after mistakes have been made. And very often when I have clients who get into adulthood, whether it's in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, part of the reason that they feel throttled, that they feel depressed in life, is because they can't hear their own voice. But what's worse is it's not just that they can't hear their own voice, because they've been listening to all these external power sources because some parent didn't want to let go of control. It's not just that they can't hear their own voice, but when you're taught your entire life to listen to what others are telling you to do, and not just listen, but to do and say and be whom others are telling you to do, say, and be. Mainly, usually the parents are the most influential adults in your life growing up. It's not just that you can't do it then, it's that you're being taught not just to not hear your own voice, but to in fact distrust your own voice. One of the great crimes committed against children is when we are forever telling them what to do, and not just in childhood, but then in teenage years, especially in 20s, 30s. Because we're teaching the child, don't trust your own voice. Well, that may seem all well and good if you're a parent, and oh, well, they don't know what they're doing, and I'll let go when they get their life together. Well, they can't get their fucking life together until they can hear their own fucking voice. So shut the fuck up, parent. Begin to let the child make their own decisions. And don't criticize them when they make those decisions, and definitely don't criticize them or say, I told you so, when they fall down or fail, because failing is part of life. And it's especially part of getting used to hearing and trusting your own voice. So what happens then, this person who's been taught their whole life, who's been told what to do their whole life, they get into adulthood and they can't hear their own voice. And they're partly going down the path of what others want me to do, or what's expected of me, or what is safe, because I know if I go any other path, I'll get criticized or doubted or undermined, right? So they're partly doing that, yet they're also perhaps partly, whether it's 20% or 60% or 80%, probably not that much, but doing what they themselves want to do, or what is ever just a fuck you to those external power sources. Very often, people will spend their lives saying fuck you, resisting, rebelling against those external power sources. But just because you're rebelling against that external power source doesn't mean you're actually living your most authentic voice. Why? Because your life is still just a response to that person's voice. Does that make sense? In other words, it's not necessarily coming up from you. You're just waiting for whatever that person's going to say, or you still have in your head what they've always said, and you're just saying, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, I'm going to go this direction. Well, that direction may not be your authentic voice. It's just a response to that person. Does that make sense? So the first step on the spiritual journey is to begin to clear out the crud that has taught you, A, your voice doesn't matter, B, don't trust your own voice, C, only those external power sources matter, and to begin to clear out, and those are really beliefs. It's a belief. My voice doesn't matter. Who I am isn't okay, isn't good enough, doesn't matter. And until we smash those beliefs and begin to lay new foundation, new framework for living, it doesn't matter how much you're overcoming fears. The overcoming fears is a big part of it. It doesn't matter how much you're trying to overcome fears, because still written on the bedrock of your soul is that your own voice can't be trusted. So the first step in the spiritual process, the first step to hearing your own voice, is to begin to articulate, to see, to mine dig up, pull out, and look at that which you've been taught to believe about yourself, that which you've been taught to believe about your own voice. And until you do that, you'll forever be operating on that virus, that infection of those external voices. You'll forever be either following or saying fuck you to those external voices. So until that external voice is pulled out of you, until you clear away that crud, you'll never hear your own fucking voice. And you will forever be caught in depression and anxiety and so forth. So that's step one, to beginning to live in communion, with your own spirit. Step two, and this is where other people get caught, is I have many clients who can hear their own voice. They know what they want to do in life. They know what they feel called to, what would excite them, what would feel liberating and rejuvenating, and that they're just fucking really want to go. But they get stuck because they don't have the courage yet to stand up to the people in their lives, both outside of them and the ones that are still inside of them from their past. They don't have the courage to stand up and basically say no. They don't have the courage to say, no, you can't criticize me. They don't have the courage to stand up and say, no, you're wrong, I do matter. They don't have the courage to begin to be, say, do, and become who they really are, because they know exactly what their fucking brother will say, or they know exactly what their mother or their favorite aunt or their father will say. They know exactly what their buddies will say. And it's that terror of hearing that keeps them stuck inside a life that they don't want. They know what they want to do with their life, but they're terrified because that criticism hurt so much when they were a kid. That undermining, that doubt hurt so much when they were a kid that they know it will hurt again. And so they know where they want to go. They know, they can hear their own voice, but they're terrified of pushing it out of them. They're terrified of putting it into words, putting it into actions, and expressing. And so, in that second phase of the spiritual journey, for those who feel like they know what direction they're called to do and go, the challenge is to begin to pull away the fear, to begin to articulate who it is, whose voice is really ringing in your head and resounding through your soul and through your being, whose voice you have to slay. And this gets a little tricky because you may still have that person in your life every day, but their voice from your past is running you. All right? And so it takes the courage to stand up to that voice. And whether it's actually done in person, it requires standing up to the voice inside of you. There's a saying by an old poet, and you've heard me say it before, but this old poet, and I don't know who it is, and if you know who it is, please put it in the comments section, because I really want to give proper attribution where it's due. And it says that no man is truly free until he can live as though his father is dead. And it's the father inside of you, or the mother inside of you, or whoever that most powerful external power source that's now inside of you, until you slay that. Regardless of what your relationship is with the person in real life, until you slay that voice inside of you, it is still running you, and you are still living in fear. Your parent may have died. Let's just say it was a parent, and it usually is. A parent who taught you criticism when you wanted to do what you want to do, when you went after your own path, who criticized or undermined or questioned you. And that person may have died, but that message still rings inside of you, doesn't it? And until that is slayed, you won't go in the direction your heart is calling you to go, your soul is calling you to do. So it requires the slaying of that voice. So if you're depressed or anxiety-ridden, or feel like you're not accomplishing who you really are, it could be that you're caught in that second stage of the spiritual cycle, the spiritual journey. And that is, you hear your own voice, but you're terrified of acting on it. But then there's a third one. And this is usually a master level step that I wait in introducing into people's lives. And it's the people who know what their voice is calling them to do, and they have the courage to go after it, but they never seem to fully accomplish it. They never seem to fully be there. And these are the folks who are stuck in the fear of letting go of the thing they most want. Now that may sound a bit odd, but part of living the spiritual journey means having the courage to let go of that which you most feel called to go after, that which your voice is calling you to do, that which your voice, inner soul is calling you to become. And it's hard to let go of it because we have this fucking vision of what I want my fucking life to be. But the simple fact of the matter, and this is where it gets, I don't know what. If you're a somewhat religious person, this will make sense to you. If you're an atheist or an agnostic, you may chafe at this thought, but it's just fucking fact. I don't give a shit what you believe. The bottom line is, I've seen this so many times, time and time again in people's lives, especially, the real achievers. It's when they stop achieving, or when they feel stuck, or they plateau, or it's when the people are on fire going in a certain direction, and then shit starts to fall apart, or they never feel like they're over the hump. They never feel like they're fully there. And it's because, again, as I sort of said, you're holding on to a vision of what it's supposed to be. But we're called to actions, not results. Called to actions, not results. It's that result. That's the vision you hold in your mind, but that's pulling you in that direction. Yet it requires you to allow room for the gods to act, for the universe, for God, for your own soul to move you in a new direction. Sometimes this vision gets us going in that direction so that we can curve into that direction, and then down, and then up, and then over. But it requires a willingness to be open to the movements, the new movements of the soul, because you're always fucking growing, like all of these trees around me. Look at all the different directions these fucking trees are growing, right? That we're called not just to one direction, we're called to expansion. And you've been living with clipped wings. You're flying, whether it's because you've been taught to distrust your own voice, or whether it's because you're afraid of expressing your true self, or whether it's because you have some vision, and maybe a big vision, but what if it's not the fullest vision? Or what if it's not your most authentic vision? What if there's something even bigger or different or whatever? You're called to fly at full fucking wingspan. And yet you're flying with clipped wings because, it has to be this, it has to be this, it has to be this. And so the question of life, and if that's the thing that's gripping you, where you know your voice and you know what you're called to do, and you have the courage to go after it, but you don't seem to be accomplishing, my question to you is it possible that you're holding on too tightly? Is it possible that you have a limited vision because you're not allowing the gods to act? You're not allowing God to act. You're not allowing for infusion of things that you can't fucking control. And so part of becoming the happiest you can ever become, and real fulfillment, achieving that, and having peace in your soul, free of depression, free of anxiety, and really feeling alive and truly happy, means letting go of total control. Letting go of, while you simultaneously pursue that which you really want, is letting go and allowing the universe to act, to infuse your life with more than you can see right now. And that's master level shit. That's fucking Buddha shit, man. And so, my question to you today is, what part of the process are you sticking in, sticking on, stuck under right now? Are you stuck in not being able to hear your own voice? Are you stuck in knowing what you want to do with your life, but feeling afraid what people will say or how people will respond? Or are you stuck in being so tunnel vision that you're not allowing the universe, the movements of the spirit of life itself, to infuse your life with shit, good shit, that you can't fucking see yet? Where are you stuck right now? And the truth is, we're always cycling through all of those in different areas of our life. Hearing our own voice, having the courage to heed it, and letting go of results. Hearing our own voice, having the courage to heed it, and then letting go of the results. In different areas of our life, we may be stuck in different aspects of the spiritual journey, but it requires assessing, and it requires brutal fucking honesty with your own fucking self. I don't mean brutal honesty with others, with your own fucking self. How are you corrupting? How are you limiting, inhibiting the true calling of your life? Living a life that is majestic and happy and no longer depressed, no longer feeling like life is sitting its fat ass right on your fucking face. How are you limiting and holding up and wasting your fucking life? See, you have to begin to look at these things. This is what I do in my counseling. We go fucking deep, man. This is what I wrote about in my book, my last book, all of my books, but this last one in particular. There's a hole in my love cup. This is what I talk about in my videos on my website, the DIY, do-it-yourself badass. Those courses that I have in there, it's helping you dig down, because most people can't do this shit on their own. It requires journaling. It requires knowing what questions to ask, and it's all in my fucking book. I mean, the book's fucking $15. I made that for the people who can't fucking afford me, all right? Who like books and like diving in. I made my fucking videos on badass counseling, the DIY badass, on my website, Badass Counseling, for people who like the interactive videos and like having me ask you the questions, then you do the fucking work on your own, all right? But this is all what it's about. Until you go down to the bedrock of your motherfucking soul and find the shit that is blocking you, you will forever find your entire life corrupted by depression, anxiety, or a sense of grand unfulfillment. So my challenge is to go into that shit. And as I said, I've provided the tools based on 25 years of doing this shit and sort of collecting from different sources things that I have experimented with myself, know they work, and have worked with my clients. I know these things work, but you have to do that. And until you clear out that crud, you will not have the happiness that you want. You will not have that success that you want. You will not have inner peace, that no matter what you do, it'll never fill that fucking hole inside. All right? That hole, you have to go into yourself and to begin to fill it yourself by looking at these 3 stages of the spiritual journey and looping through those regarding all aspects of your life. So, all of that being said, I hope you have a kick-ass day, and I really hope you'll go into this shit, because this is where fucking happiness is. This isn't just contrived, made-up bullshit. This is 25 years of counseling people and seeing the patterns over and over and over again. This is almost 35 years in my own life of experimenting and finding the fucking answers, because I didn't have anyone helping me. I had to figure it out for my fucking self. And then I've had 25 years of helping other people do it. It's just patterns. You just see it over and over and over and over and over again. You see what works, you see what doesn't work. And I'm telling you, this shit works. So I wish you the very best. I wish you a kick-ass day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.